services district. And as long as that exists, you'll want to have a separate urban service district so that those for whom that liability was originally charged to continue to pay that charge. There's a second issue that is in some ways more complicated. There is a tax cap in the urban service district as well that is that if you do away with it, if you do away with the urban service district and the millage rate charged there, the replacement millage rate that would be used countywide will not be sufficient enough to generate the same amount of revenue. And so it has to do with how sales taxes are credited to the urban services district, and the cap that was created many, many years ago for the city of Augusta. And so based on those issues, Mr. Thorne suggests that that urban service district and the suburban service district continue to exist. Now, the other thing that he did say is that it is the current policy of Augusta to try and equalize as much as possible the amount paid for a given service. So, for example, if you look at garbage collection, that is the same rate for the same service. Now, streetlights is a different rate, and there were some reasons for that that are a little more complicated, and we would need him to explain why there is a different rate on for the suburban area versus the urban area on the, and I think it has to do in part with the placement of new streetlights in the suburban district, where in the urban district those streetlights are already existing. So what you pay for is the maintenance and energy costs of the streetlights there, where you have installation and new installation in the suburban district. So the long and the short of it is that based on that conversation, the urban and suburban districts should continue to be part of the charter. Now, there was one other question related to this, and that was that there's also a provision in the charter that talks about any outstanding debt from the city of Augusta would be paid by folks in the former city of Augusta. There is no longer any outstanding general obligation debt that anybody is aware of that continues to be the case. So that provision can be taken out of the charter.
Okay. Eric would like to ask you a question. Eric Gaines.
Dr. Fraser, just in regards to the old city pension system. Now, I don't know if I don't know if you have any further information on that, but is there like a time frame that this liability will go away? I'm assuming those are folks that retired up underneath the old system that that was a part of the prior.
Yeah, so there are apparently still a handful of people that are working for Augusta Richmond that are covered under that old pension system. And so until they retire, and then they no longer draw from the retirement system. So you're still looking at 10, 20, 30 years that could still need to be in place. Charlie, I think you had a question or comment?
I'm sorry, Chair.
Madam Chair, I have some questions on the same line. Now, which pensions was he talking about? Was he talking about the 49, the old city 49, the old county 77, or the combination of how many different type of pensions that still have active members in it? I hadn't been to a pension committee meeting in a long time, but about the only one that was really still active was the city 49. Most of the other pensions have been down to like 1 or 2 people. This is like 12 years ago.
I think he's right about that, or at least I was.
Yeah, the whole thing.
I think that's actually what I heard too.
And I would like to ask the attorney. Now, when we consolidate, did it not become the consolidated government's responsibility to maintain those pensions?
We kept them separate.
This one's part of the code.
It was kept separate on purpose so that the people in the county would not have to absorb debt from the city.
We still get reports on the 45 and 77. We still receive reports. I'm not sure that information, that those plans are not active. I'm not sure that's active.
If I can
All
remember.
right, Jeff, hopefully
There we are.
we're back online.
Yeah.
Because I can remember back in going to some of those meetings, those finance committee meetings, once a year, they would have individual come in and do
So,
the,
yeah.
and he would tell them how much the city had put in to keep it solid for each one.
So if the city is already putting in money, it's all the one.
Look, I don't know if that's accurate, say, putting in, I think there are accounts that, money is earned, but that's not the correct language I need to use. But I do know that those plans are still active.
Right.
Because we receive reports on
The
them.
49 is the main one I'm talking about, because the
That was the
49
same one.
hardly had anybody still paying into
Yeah, I
it,
think
they had
that
a
would be
large
the
number
number.
of people drawing from it.
There were several individuals, if I recall correctly, the last time that a commissioner asked questions about the numbers.
And the reason I ask that is because about 3 years after we consolidated, the consolidated government offered a early out to anybody 50 or older and gave them an additional 10 years in whatever pension they were, 49. So there was a lot of people that retired at the age of 50, and 51 and 52 that started drawing on that 49 pension. Some of them were making 102% of what their salaries were.
But that still doesn't, you know, I understand his point, because even though you may have a deceased members, those funds that are still left may be paid to a beneficiary, something like that. So I'm not sure your statements are accurate
But,
without having that
and
information.
even if they are completely funded,
Yeah,
there is the potential for a liability
that's right.
that if the market went down or something, that would fall back to that urban service district again, even if it isn't yet currently fully funded. We hope that it doesn't happen, but that would happen in the 2008 fiscal crisis. We had a number of jurisdictions that lost the pension funds and had to come up with significant payments.
Steve?
So Dr. Facer, if it's left in place, would you recommend making any changes to it whatsoever?
No, I think just keeping it as is makes the most sense.
And just strike the one portion that no longer applies? Where did I write that?
Yeah, so the portion about the debt, that can be struck.
Okay. Got it. How about, how is it currently when they establish a policy about offering equal taxation for equal services, even though they don't have a means of doing so just yet? Is that technically an ordinance question or something we could deal with in charter? In other words, charge them with devising a system.
I think that is fundamentally an ordinance question. But, council could, correct me if I'm misspeaking.
I don't think it's ordinance. I
Ms.
think we
Morwa?
need to do it ordinance. I think we need to leave it as is and let them per the ordinance.
Because the charter already says that you don't pay for the service if you don't
Right.
get it.
Right.
So everything.
But it
else
doesn't say
is
anything about it if you are getting the service and you don't pay for it. That's my question, because that is an issue. I mean, there are not equal rates paid for law enforcement, fire, and we have 2 police people that can talk about this. Ambulance, it is still a 2-tiered system. And that's, I guess, the concern. We're in a financial issue. That's just one of the many pieces that,
Yeah, that's important.
okay. All right. Does anybody else have any questions then? Anybody in the public got any questions? All right, that's the case. Is there anything else so you want us to put a motion on the floor to strike through that line for the January 22nd meeting?
I believe that would be reasonable.
All right, very good. Does that agree with everybody's opinion here around this table?
Yes.
All right, very good. All right, let's go to number 2, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Steve Fouché, and then let's have a conversation. I think there's a sheet that is circulated. Part of it we've already voted on, I believe.
Does anybody need a copy of this that doesn't have one?
Yeah.
You guys have one back there?
I passed mine.
Oh, good, thank you.
It's about
What, an
three-
extra copy?
We don't have any extra ones.
It's about 3 people left.
I printed, I think,
I don't
12.
have
All right,
much.
I got some pretty close to being right. Let's just share it with them so they got that too. It's great. Susan, do you have one? Or Susan, or you got one?
I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, it's just,
Change it and correct it. Just a typo. You bet.
All right,
Yes, ma'am. Hey, George, how you doing?
Oliver Twist asking for more glue.
ladies and gentlemen, what you're looking at is a substitution for language represented in our current charter, which is known as section 1.40, equal opportunity. I've done my best to reword this section of our current charter so that we've removed any and all language that pertains to favorability for one race or another. I can read this, but I'm sure everybody can read it for themselves, so I need to read it for the record.
yes.
Equal Opportunity, Section A, the government of Augusta Richmond County shall encourage the meaningful involvement in its operations of all citizens of Augusta Richmond County in accordance with federal and state EEO guidelines and procedures. The Commission shall afford equal opportunities for employment and promotion to all persons and businesses regardless of race, religion, gender, or ethnicity. Excuse me, I can't say that word very well. Section B, it is the policy of Augusta Richmond County government to secure the most qualified and talented individuals for employment, vendor relationships, provisions of goods and services without consideration of race, religion, gender, or national origin. Section C, in furtherance of these policies stated in subsections A and B of this section, the Commission shall employ a person to serve as an equal opportunity director. The director shall develop and, subject to the approval of the Commission, implement such policies, procedures, and guidelines as the director deems necessary or appropriate to ensure equal opportunities are taking place for all citizens and that licensed contractors and businesses residing in Augusta Richmond County are given preferential consideration. Section D, the Commission shall establish a Citizens Advisory Council to advise the Commission and Director on matters pertaining to this section and its enforcement.
So, Dr. Facer, you were going to take a look at this and report back? Had you spoken with Mr. Pinkett about this?
We wanted to get council's feedback. Our concern was making sure that this didn't create a liability, and that exists, the existing language in the charter as well. From council's perspective, we wanted to make sure there was not a liability to the city if it wasn't met, it could be challenged. So it's really a question for the council.
Okay. Ms. Zena, you're good at.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm gonna keep it short.
Okay.
I think that the best person to bring into this matter is the city's, is the county's, compliance director, the interim compliance director, and I say that because I know, having, had recent discussions with her, that there is currently a process in place where she is providing language to amend language that is put in all of our contracts when we bid out projects for our vendors. So I would like to have her input, or I think that it's good for you all to talk to her to ensure that this language is consistent, because we're revising documents now, and I think that would be the best department to comment, and I think that's one person you all have not heard from.
Who is this person?
That's Dr. Yolanda Jackson.
Well, this is one of the last sections of the new charter that we're drafting. So we'd like to try to move forward with it as soon as humanly possible. Can legal counsel give us direction for our next meeting?
I can, but in that she's going to send me back the revisions for my review. I don't have those yet. I do know that she is working on that language. Perhaps you all can have her come in and speak to you at your next meeting. But, you know,
But even at, Frank, but even at that, she still have to review it.
yeah,
Yeah, so I think we let her,
You think what?
let her review it, because
Can we
making a
put her on
decision
our-
like that quickly, she don't have enough information.
Can we put her on our next agenda?
Yep.
For speaking to us?
Yep.
you have a question.
Who else, okay, I'm sorry, I'm checking, thank you.
So I have some recommendations for removal of some language here. In section A, in the last section, I think that regardless of blah, 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 should just be taken out. It seems intentionally, it just seems too intentional. And if there's a classification that one day comes up that's not included in that list, then the list becomes null and void, so just remove the list altogether. Same thing with part B, the without consideration, just take that out. So everything without consideration of blah, 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 regardless of blah, 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 just leave it as open-ended as possible, so that everything, if there needs to be any additional, specificity to this, it can be handled in ordinance.
Could you give me an example?
What do you mean?
Could you give me an example of what you'd like to see?
Just remove regardless of race, religion, gender, or ethnicity from A. And remove without consideration of race, religion, gender, or national origin in B. Because those two are, right, as reading, they're not even consistent. So there's no point in actually B.
Well, it's actually a part of our current charter.
Right, and our current charter is what we're revising now, so.
The only thing that I was trying to accomplish was redundancy. Sex, for example, has no reason to be in there. Gender,
Yeah, but I do have a concern, Mr. Hushain, especially with B, because I think that that directly conflicts with our procurement laws that are in place, that particular language, so we want to be careful. You know, when you talk about vendor relationships, there's an entirely different process, and there is language that is, you know, is mandated in those contracts. So that is why I said to let the compliance director come in and add additional clarification for you, because I do know that those provisions are being revised, because there is specific language coming down from the state as well as the federal government in terms of specific language as it pertains to minorities.
and I would welcome a draft of better language throughout the document if you see it.
No, it's just those two areas. Just, if you just remove those two sections, it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, with B, I question.
Yeah, well, B overall has other issues, but I'm talking about the race, religion, gender, national origin. That I don't think is necessary if we already stated that it's in accordance with federal and state EEO guidelines and procedures. Let the state and federal guidelines and
Okay,
procedures
I understand
navigate
that,
that.
I understand.
And I do think that's
Yeah.
somewhat similar to what's happening now from the state level.
Yeah.
But I have not seen that because she hasn't sent it to me yet.
Okay.
So we would need additional time to look this up.
Just striking through the regardless of and
No,
continue.
second.
Oh, the, without consideration. B, without consideration of race, religion, gender, or national origin. Just because the state and federal guidelines are gonna navigate that anyway, so leave it open-ended. Let the state and federal mandates handle that. Because the charter can't supersede it anyway.
Now, is anybody aware, don't we have a citizen committee that deals and supports the EEO director? Is there no,
We don't have it.
I thought we did at one point.
We have a disadvantaged business. The interim person now that's serving as interim compliance director, she's over that department.
Okay.
But I mean, was there not a citizens committee that also met in support of or would debate with? At some point, I believe there was. I don't know what happened to it, but that's too far back in my memory to be reliable. All right, well, let us, if everybody's in agreement, we'll put a call in to Dr. Jackson.
Yeah.
Who else, Zena, who else should be involved in this conversation from your vantage point?
think she would be the best person to start.
Okay. But who further down the food chain needs to be considered?
I
Besides you
think her,
and Jim?
she's coming up with the language unless you wanna have the procurement director, but I don't, at this point, I don't see a reason why the procurement director should be included in this discussion about language.
Okay. Dr. Pacer,
You got a question?
oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Coleman wants to ask you a question, and I've got one for you too.
I have a question on C, and it might take the procurement director to answer this question and see what her definition is. On the last sentence, it says contractors and businesses residing in Augusta, Richmond County are given preferential consideration. I would like to know what the definition of preferential consideration is.
Yeah.
Local vendors first.
Does it have a monetary value on it, even though you find somebody who's qualified to do it, who's doing the job cheaply, even though they don't live in Richmond County?
Well, you're
Well,
talking about procurement, bid process,
Yes.
there's a whole procedure in place, so this is different standards and procedures for deciding, and it's not the most qualified and talented individual. They use different language in determining, I can't think of it right now, but she would be the best person to come in to comment about the disadvantaged business enterprise that the
Right.
county has,
It's
and
my-
explaining that to you.
My concern is I've seen a lot of contract jobs done in Augusta, Richmond County that use a local contractor that did some substandard work.
Those are subcontractors.
Just
Either way,
because
the contractor is still responsible.
I just want to make sure something in there to make sure the taxpayers get what they pay for.
So that question would be a current question.
It's just making sure this equitable process is being followed through.
If there's a poor subcontractor, it's still fall on the contractor to secure that. Contractor needs to hire.
Contractor needs to come back and fix it.
Yeah, that part.
Exactly. Not at our expense, that's right.
I haven't seen it done.
So let's do this, let's gather all the questions, because I think it's fair to request Dr. Jackson to think about this and come to the next meeting. I think it's also fair for us to put our questions together, put our heads together on what the question should be, have that person specifically research what it's gonna say, and then we'll hear from them on the 22nd. And now the question is, do we bring it back to a work session, or do you want to take it back to the main body?
Anybody?
Are you going to give her a list of the questions, kind of give her a heads up what to look at?
I think that would be a good idea if we really want our questions answered. In other words, take advantage of the research time to go ahead and get good examples so that when we ask a question, we can get the answer to it before we cast a vote. How about Dr. Pacer? Anybody else we need to be speaking with from your vantage point?
No,
Uh-oh, you froze again.
Cold enough.
I'm sorry. Okay, so Dr.
So who's the vendor responsible for Wi-Fi connection here?
Yeah.
It's subcontract though.
I believe she may be watching this, so she may be there. I don't know if that's what she meant, but she may be coming. But go ahead.
That'd be great if she did.
Yeah,
I
that'd
think
be
she's
great.
watching.
But I think it's fair for us to, it's kind of hard when you're in a meeting to capture every nuance of what you're trying to do with things, so
Oh,
if we could give her actual questions that we need answers to in order to feel comfortable with that decision, would be fine. Be good.
Preferential treatment for contractors is common from what I've seen. There's nothing we can put into the charter that's gonna fix the just poor quality. It's more important.
Yeah, that's Richard Jones, who's not with us today. I promised him, I gotta get with him too, after all the rest of this. Okay, all right.
before we froze, you asked if there was anybody else from our perspective, and if we didn't have anybody else.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna default to local council and practices and go from there? All right,
Yes.
okay. All righty. Anything else on this? So what did we decide about, we're gonna take it to the big meeting? What was the consensus here?
Equal opportunity?
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, very good. That's
You
what
wanna
we'll do.
come up with questions now?
No,
Yeah.
that would say by Monday. you know, today's Thursday, by Monday, if you'll get your questions, because I don't wanna waste her time either, but it would be nice if we take some time and come up with our questions, and then we'll submit them to her Monday. And then that way, if she needs to talk back and forth with us, she has the opportunity to do that too. That'll give her, you know, what, a little better than a week, yeah. Yeah. I think that's just respectful of her position, since she's working on other things and not waiting for us to toss something into her report. All right, so Dr. Pacer, number 3 was the discussion of the court language.
Yeah, so in the strike-through version, most of the court issues have been struck because they're covered in state law. We were not as familiar with the civil court, and so we had a conversation with the chief judge of the civil court, and then based on that conversation, we went back. One of the things we learned is that the civil court is established through local legislation by the General Assembly. And so one of our questions was, and the judge didn't know the answer either, is there anything covered in the charter that is not covered in state law? And anything that's covered in state law automatically trumps the charter anyway. And so we went back and reviewed all of the elements that are in the current charter and compared them to the statutory language and any amendments that had occurred over the years. And for all but one, I think all but one section, they were verbatim with a couple of minor changes. For example, there was a place where they had the number 11 in the statutory language, and it was spelled out in the charter. So there were a couple of minor things like that, where the phrase "be it hereby resolved," which is in the local legislation, was not included in the charter. But it appears that there is nothing in the charter that is beyond what is included in the local legislation. One caveat: there's one section dealing with the marshal that we have not had a chance to review yet, and we are in the process of pulling that language to double check to make sure that that is also covered in state law. It appears that it is, but we've got to double check that language to make sure. And so, and now I also have to say, Lori has been out the last several days, and so she's going to come back and double check to make sure that those of us who are not technical readers of the law didn't miss something. But literally, the text is verbatim, and so.
Oh, frozen.
The charter about it runs with Wi-Fi. Maybe they need a Wi-Fi charter when it doesn't work. Yeah.
So, our marshal was here, was here. I was gonna say, that I think it has to be, I'm pretty sure it is the state requirement that the marshals, and the reason they're having to check this, because there are only 2 non-conforming counties, and we're one of them.
Non-conforming.
Meaning as it relates to the way the courts are set up, most of them don't have a civil plus a magistrate. And that's one of our unique
A civil magistrate,
July.
and what are you talking?
civil court and magistrate court.
Yeah, so there are 2 courts. They're both created under local legislation or state law. And so there's nothing that the charter could do that would supersede state law. And so what we've checked is to make sure that there's nothing that is.
Uh-oh, you aren't gonna get to sit down today, I don't think. It's frozen again.
Yeah. I was going to pull up the chair.
That's not
Well, I wonder if we took it off video and just went audio, if that would help.
That's not
Oh, okay.
It's a sign that they need to be.
Right.
Is it what?
That's a sign that you
Yeah, he's got unfortunate family things he's trying to manage. the St. George Utah one. So Zena, the fact that we have a civil and a magistrate court, it's been that way for almost ever. Best I can tell from looking back, it's pre-1888. So-
I'm not certain what you mean by a civil court. We have a magistrate court here, we have,
They don't call it municipal, they call it civil. And it has to do with how much the claim is. I think the limit on
yeah, that's
civil.
magistrate.
Right.
Yeah,
Well-
so that's different from magistrate and state court, and we have a superior court.
But we also have a civil court, which deals with all the way up to 45,000. So I can't honestly tell you which is which, because it's very confusing to me too, but I know that's what the distinction is how much the claim is for. And then, I know because I'm hearing about it ad nauseum where I live every day.
We don't have any civil court judges. We have magistrate court judges, we have state court judges, we have superior court judges. So there's not a separate civil.
The judges that cover magistrate also
That's
cover
right.
civil.
Yeah, they hear civil and criminal cases.
Right, that's correct.
And I believe state law increased the threshold for which they can hear civil cases. I think that's mandated by state law. I believe so.
Yeah, well, I think that's what they're trying to sift through to find out, because the legislature allowed that to be developed that way, and it's been practiced that way forever, so.
Yeah.
But as it's currently set up, it is not conforming to the rest of the state. We're 2 out of 159 counties, and ours is done slightly different than everybody else's.
Okay, I don't know the specifics of that, I'll have to look at it, but what's the concern? What is it that you all wish to change? What's the language that you?
Well, the question is, do we make it conform or do we leave it as is? We've got a pretty healthy line of people on both sides, unfortunately.
Have you heard from the magistrate judges?
We had one scheduled and she canceled, and we have not rescheduled it because they've been researching the issues to see if it was even necessary.
And we did have a conversation with the judge, and we told her we would look at this. We have not had a chance to follow back up with her yet.
I think
And so we're going to let her know that there's not anything in the charter that is not included in state law. And so that was, the judge's concern was to make sure that there wasn't something authorized in the charter that gave them some authority to act that was beyond, not against state law, but in addition to. We did not find it.
And let's be
So
perfect.
we will report that back to the judge if it appears that we can take it out of the charter. But again, we will have that conversation with the judge and be able to give that final conversation in 2 weeks.
Yeah, Rex, and I want to be perfectly clear here too, is that the 2 counties in Georgia that has the civil magistrate thing is Richmond, Augusta, Richmond County, and it's Bibb County.
That's right.
And
Macon.
Macon.
That's correct.
And what I'm hearing is because Macon, Bibb, and Richmond, Augusta are different, doesn't make it wrong.
That's right.
And matter of fact, both jurisdictions feel that the kind of court system they have is necessary for their area. So that's something I think we need to consider too, is that even though it's different than the rest of the state, our system is very comfortable with it.
And it could be unique to consolidated governments.
Yeah, the judge was very comfortable with the system as it's designed, and they thought it worked well. Just unique.
Yeah,
Just unique.
because unique to consolidated governments.
Right. Okay, so we're just crossing our T's, dotting our I's. Mr. Plunkett just joined us, he's overhearing all this.
Oh, leaving it up to me.
Thank you, sir. But for
Yes.
purposes of that, the civil court has been around since, call it the 1986 Constitution.
1933.
It was a civil, there was a civil court when I was in law school, and I'll tell you that was well before consolidation
Oh,
was
yeah.
ever thought
Yeah.
of, so
Yeah.
it's been around.
Okay, does anybody else have questions we need to cover on that one?
I
Augustus?
just think that's one of those things that we don't need to address right now.
Not
We
today,
can
for
leave
sure.
that for the upcoming
Yeah.
charter review committee for them to decide.
Yep.
It's working, so if it's not broken, let's not try to fix it.
Yep, we can put that on our notes if we need to, and then just let them take it up in 7 years if there's enough consideration for that one way or the other. All right, what other issues need to come before this body today? Anybody got any?
Did we already discuss the actual townhomes dates? I know we said something about
So,
setting up for
let
locations.
me tell you what I know. What I was working on in December, right after the last meeting. We have a problem with venues because, Clint, I want you to jump in here in a minute. Ms. Bonner said that all the rec centers like Warren Road, Diamond Lakes, we threw out some dates in January, and they're all taken up by basketball tournaments. So that's gone. We could get the Beasley Room was not so much a problem because we don't have any elections going on right now. The more we dug into this, and Clint and the CVIOG and I were on the phone the other day talking about this, we were of the opinion that we are so close to the end that the decisions have been made, you know, as we were charged with doing, that did we need any more town halls, or would it be wiser to schedule a citywide reveal for everybody and go from there? Am I saying that wrong?
Yeah, no, I think you're saying it wrong. I think what our discussion led to was the fact that it's that it would give us an opportunity for Carl Benson to do their work. They writing and everything is probably going to be at least 2 months to get that done. But once they get that done, and before we send it off, is that we could have basically a reveal to the city, maybe 2 or 3. If it's not at Recreation Park, one could be at Payne, one could be at Augusta, one could be at Augusta Tech. I don't know, but we could provide an opportunity and get somebody to MC it outside of being a politician or one of us. That maybe Dee Griffin might do it, or somebody. There's several people that show some interest in might doing that. And then after that, because basically for us to go to the public now without the work to show them, I think it's doubling up for me. Is that let's do the job, let them put it together, and then we present that to the public before we place it. That was my thoughts.
Madam Chair, I strongly agree with Coach. That I think is
Second.
Who's first here, kids? Okay, Chef? Ms. Robbins?
I agree, but there's a caveat there. I don't think a big reveal is going to be as beneficial as we think it is, because we know the charter is going to have a whole lot of legalese that most people may not understand. I think what makes best of our, once we're finished making our decisions as a body, is to have conversations about what we decide. I don't think we have to wait for the official language, because we've already decided. And the plain language, I think, is going to be more impactful than us sitting there doing a big reveal of the actual language of the charter that is legal up to the point we may not even understand. So I think probably just having a citywide meeting where we just have a conversation with these are the things we decided, these are the reasons we decided, while we're waiting on them to make their edits, because we're not going to make any more changes at that point, I would imagine, between us. So we kind of twiddling our thumbs for 2 months waiting on them to do it. That could be a great opportunity to have this public meeting. They don't have to necessarily, I don't necessarily think that they need to be where we have this in these big community centers and things like that, so much as it may be spending a lot of time in media, you know, doing interviews and things of that nature, doing op-eds where we can explain certain things that we've done and spend that time kind of educating the community a little bit more than when we have this big reveal. Because I mean, what are we doing with a piece of paper? And will that really communicate anything? Versus, hey, here's what the new form of government we chose, here are the reasons why, here are the potentials around that. Having lots of conversations, lots of, like I said, op-eds could be a great way to get that information out.
I think you mentioned YouTube's last week.
Yep, YouTube, we can do like little mini interviews on each section and put it out as YouTube videos.
I think we could do both and be very effective.
I think so too.
But I also think there's some wisdom to presenting to the community at large, throw a date out far enough where we could consider that kind of thing. Eric, you were next.
Yes, I think the actual town halls need to happen, and the reason why I brought it forth is not so that we can actually do this big reveal, but when this committee was established, the plan was to have town halls throughout the entire process. There has been a minute, it's been a while since we've had an actual town hall, and it's more so updating the public, the general public, about what we have done and where we have gotten, and also answer some questions. Because the previous town halls, it was more so, one individual from the actual committee doing all the talking, and not really more so of an engagement from the entire committee regarding some of the decisions we made, what the thought process behind it. And so I think it's best that we do have a town hall so that we can provide those updates, because a lot of folks in the community, they just don't have the ability to get here during some of the normal hours that we're making some of these decisions. So that was my big reason behind that, and that was, of course, with the input for some of the members of the community that also asked for some of this, because there's a lot of ground that's been covered since that last major sanctioned town hall that was done. So.
Yeah, but boy, we've had like 15 in other venues too, though, and it's the same people showing up over and over and over again too. So, good points, and not to diminish what you just said. I think there's some wisdom to maybe trying to think outside the box on this. Maybe George, are you in here? Mm-hmm. Maybe we have George go back and pitch WJBF on a 30-minute public service.
Or Brad Means would do it.
Brad Means would do it.
But I hate to speak for, I cannot speak for anybody.
You give him my phone number and have him call me. And then I think we can do that with more than one. Mr. Lewis.
Yes, the only thing I want to say,
Next time, but
the terminology is that the definitive terminology by saying the decisions we made, let's keep reminding the people these are the recommendations. I think that's important, because sometimes they say, oh, you already made a decision. No, we're not making a decision. We're making recommendations.
And one thing too is on our recommendations, we really need to make sure that the people know that we are not changing the government. The voters are going to change the government. And that's the thing, I think that the general public believes that these 11 people are going to take over the government. And again, the voters will make the difference. They'll either vote for it or they won't.
absolutely, all good points.
And that's the other thing, is that once we go through the process and we give it to the legislators, and then if they think it's worthy of being on a referendum, is that there will be lots of discussion by a lot of groups before the actual vote. So I just don't want people thinking that the work is done now, because the work is not done now. This is just the beginning of the work. And so, and knowing what Carl Vincent has to put together, and even for us, once we get that document, we can say, okay, these are the emphasis points that we want to make sure we get out there to people. That this is important. They said this was important when we had our town halls, and this is how we dealt with it, and so forth and so on. Because I just don't want for us to feel like we got to meet just to meet when the work is basically almost done.
Okay, Mr. Boucher?
I think everyone has made excellent points, but the end game is for us to get this passed in the next election. And the voters are not going to vote for this unless they feel like they've been included in every step of the process. So I completely agree with you that showing the public a finished product is logical, but if they don't feel like that they've been included along the way through the process extensively, this falls on its face.
know, I think we were given a monumental job to go into something that most of us, all of us, did not know the complexities of, and we've gone through that. Our real job is gonna start if the legislature approves what we recommend to come back, is the education of the public. I believe we're gonna need to be able to speak in a lot of different places to different parts of the county, to let them know what we've done and how it can make the local government more efficient.
We've been so involved in the process, it's clear to us.
Right, that's why we
It is
need to
not-
make it
Right.
clear to
It's not
everybody else.
clear to anyone outside of this room.
That's exactly right.
This is why I say we need to lean on the media to help with this. Because if we have a town hall and it's not at the right time or the right location, everybody complains because they weren't there to do certain things. Versus if we have media archives of different material, we can always point people to information. And then, you know, at some point in the future, if they can email questions. Like somebody emailed me a question about something the other day, because our information is out there, and invite people to do that. We always have an archive of the information so that they can refer back to. And we're not, well, I missed that town hall, we didn't have enough of them, or you didn't tell people in time. We run into all those issues. We haven't effectively used the media for this process. This is the time to do so. Because at this point, just like we have elected officials running for office, this body is running for office for this document.
I'm in politics.
You are. Welcome. Or maybe have cake sometimes.
All right, anybody else got other comments on that? I think these are all excellent.
Madam Chair, I think there is one other item that needs to be included in today's agenda, just
Okay.
for a brief conversation.
Yes. I'm going to kick this to Dr. Facer about Dan Funch's request for information about the
Non-disclosure.
non-disclosure agreements for economic development projects and so forth.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
and I'll say something briefly, and then I'll kick it over to Jim. So we had a query come in about whether or not it would be possible to have some additional language in the charter that kind of guaranteed transparency around economic development transactions. They were aware of some transactions in some other jurisdictions about things like data centers, where the city was not authorized to release how much water, for example, the data center was going to use. And so, as we have started to look into that, but we still have more digging. It becomes a layered and complex issue in part because economic development agreements, while they may impact the city, are often not done by the city. They're often done by, like, the Economic Development Authority, the Downtown Development Authority, or another closely related but slightly arm's length organization, and that creates some complexities around requiring some of that transparency. Now, I think the norm and expectation that you all have articulated several times is of valuing transparency and engagement is important. I think we want to try and find some language where we can articulate that as part of the charter. But whether or not we have the ability to kind of drill down into that economic development space is a little hard to tease out. Jim, I know you have some other kind of reflections as well.
Well, Rex, mostly you're spot on what I think about that. I think that one of the things that this body needs to think of is that for every yin, there's a yang. And so when you have the open records laws and open meetings, and that has a lot of issues, and historically we've used that as kind of, we don't sign NDAs. Now, there are some slight restrictions on tax information and proprietary information, and water flow or closed systems in a water, in a data system may be proprietary, and that takes a legal analysis. But someone suggested maybe this could be done as an ordinance. I think that has probably a little bit more, if you did it as an ordinance versus a charter, I think that probably gives you flexibility to going down the road. I don't know that if, let's say the open records law 2 years from now said cities can do that, and every city around the community, the state is doing NDAs except for Augusta. Does that exclude you? Well, we would have to go back and have, however, charter approvals to change, whereas you would have the flexibility if it was in your ordinance. So if there is a thought on that, I would probably go ordinance over charter, but we can do a deeper dive. But the other thing is that I've done economic work for Augusta since about 2005, and I'm only, I think, maybe 3 times that I was involved with that the city was asked to sign an NDA. And when we said, you know, open records has a lot to do with this, the developer backed off of that and went a different route. I think that the development authorities do have the ability to sign NDAs, and they frequently do, but most of the industries, real estate development not being like apartments or things like that, oftentimes are not, going through that route, but industrial type things, large commercial, typically is going to go through the EDA, DDA, or something like that. And so they're going to be sending it to Augusta after that. But I've not seen a lot of situations where NDA was requested or even warranted. But
wouldn't that be the reason why the charter would be the checks and balance for it? Because if it goes in order, then who's left up to actually enforce that? Or,
well, if you said in the charter you cannot sign an NDA, okay, state law changed 2 years from now,
yeah.
and we can. All our competitive cities now can do that, and so when we're recruiting somebody, they know that our information is going to be available if they come to us. Would they potentially go somewhere else?
Yeah.
So, but if you had an ordinance that said you can't do it, and then later needed to change that, then a vote of 6 commissioners could remedy that, as opposed to currently, and I don't recall exactly in this one, if we have to go back to the legislature to change the charter in between the reviews, you're making yourself competitively disadvantaged. So I think that's why ordinances have a little bit more flexibility, be built into the transparency issue. But I would also, if I was advising the commission, I would be saying, let's look at the open records and see if that really protects as much as we need to. It's my understanding that Lori is in the document, there's a notes section and things that y'all considered. And I would encourage, whether or not you go either route, it should be in the charter or just maybe an ordinance, that is a point that she makes in the document that says, we're concerned about NDAs and how that, what's the word I'm looking for, conveys Augusta's,
adversely impacts our ability to accomplish economic projects.
But it also does evade the issue of transparency. So,
Yes.
The commission needs to weigh that on a.
Are the authorities subject to the same level of scrutiny that county activities are, out of curiosity?
I think they have some ability to sign NDAs, but they're still open to open records and open meetings and stuff like that. But that's just, the nature of economic development is a lot of tire kicking and a lot of considerations, and a lot of deals don't go very far at all. I think the stuff in Columbia County is, it's taken a life of its own in terms of how things are presented and people get concerned. But there's a Zena's heard me say this in our meetings before, there's no Patterson law that bad cases make bad law, and you don't want to overly make a restriction because we have one bad situation, if that makes sense. But if y'all want in the charter, we will come up with language to put in the charter. That's y'all's overall decision.
It was just merely to have a discussion on this, because, you know, some of the people did bring it forward.
It's a valid point,
So,
and it does seem disingenuous when the elected officials are not disclosing what, you don't know what they're considering. But that's just the nature of recruiting.
I think partly a lot of this conversation came up too because there was recent news regarding a database twice the size of Augusta Mall being possibly built. But my understanding is they went through the normal process anyways to get that rezoning qualification several years ago. So it kind of fell below the wayside where folks wasn't paying attention to planning and commission meetings and things of that sort. So, yeah.
I think you're accurate with that.
All right. We got any other comments or other issues we need to tackle today?
Marcy, I have one.
Okay.
For Jim, downtown for years, we couldn't write parking tickets because there was no court for the parking tickets to go get. Is that going to be settled in this new charter? Because we're going to start parking meters downtown, I'm sure. So is there a court to adjudicate if somebody has a complaint about their parking ticket?
That, Zena actually made way up more, because I think she was in Savannah where they did do a lot of tickets and stuff like that. I think we would do this by ordinance when we adopted a parking thing, and then it would be prosecuted, using that word very loosely, if it went to court, into the magistrate courts.
Yeah, the county can essentially create a separate city court.
Yeah, we could have a municipal court, but I think magistrate court handles our ordinance violations now, and we would continue to do that, subject to the magistrate court judges being willing to do that.
Charter.
Most of it's just booze that you gotta go down and pay $150 to get the good off.
See, I can't write the ticket.
Yeah.
Nobody has a place to complain. I think it needs to be in the charter.
Okay. So. All right, let's do this. I am probably not going to address the issue of where we would have public hearings, where the reveal, we have no idea when we're going to be ready anyway, so that one, we're going to have, but I'm going to request that it's okay that we hold off till Monday or Tuesday so that I can get through this other. And then I'm going to start picking on you guys, try to keep you in the loop on the ideas that are flying around. If you have your ethics thing, I'm ready to put that in.
I'll email it to you.
Okay. And I've begun one, I just haven't looked at it in 3 weeks, about form of government and what underpinned that decision. So I think let's do this, a little homework for the rest of us. You guys, individually, if you would, shoot me an email or text and say, here are what I consider to be the 5 biggest things we did in this process. So a couple of them are easy. Form of government, audits, ethics. There are other things, but those were the 3 biggest ones. And what we want, if we need to devise, I agree with Sheffy in this much, we need to devise some sort of an executive summary that we all agree on. And then I think it's going to be kind of an iterative process, developing YouTubes so that we clearly and digestibly communicate what we did and why. And I think separate members, different members should be being the person on YouTube discussing these things. And it doesn't have to be one person or 3 people, it needs to be spread around because the committee has gelled very well and productively in the last couple of months, I think. So if you guys would take the time to go ahead and let me know what you think your top 5 or 6 issues are so we know where to direct our efforts, that would be very helpful. All right, so the next meeting, it's going to be a full meeting and possibly a work
Also, you
session.
got the other questions for the lady.
For the EO.
Yes, yes. And We have, and that, yeah, and we requested that earlier too, so specific questions we have for Dr. Jackson and that's devising the language as it relates to equal opportunity, that would be good to have too, because I suspect Monday we'll be on the phone with her. So we'll just keep shooting you updates. Other than that, I think the meetings eventually are gonna shift to, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I just real quick, and I don't have my notes again, so I'm prepared, so I hope you don't hold this against me. But I know there was language that we decided to hold off on, that we were going to possibly vote on. I thought we were going to possibly
From
do it
last
for this
meeting?
meeting. Yeah, for, if we would have had a meeting at 10 a.m.
Yeah, we only
Was it
had
just
one,
email? I thought it was something else too.
Yeah.
It was something.
I only had one motion to put on the table. There was only one motion to put on the table, and that seemed kind of wasteful to drag, the city folks and everybody to the table for one motion when we could roll it to January 22nd. So we,
Is that the next meeting?
Clinton, I, and the team just said, why don't we cancel the big meeting and stick with the work session? And that's why we did that. But whatever we had on that week from,
I'm gonna go back and look at my notes.
do that.
It might was.
I'm not gonna do it probably till Monday, but I would appreciate it. I'll go ahead and get what I have after we do our cadence meeting Monday, and then circulate it so that if we're forgetting something, it'll work its way into the rotation. I don't really expect that. Dr. Facer, do you anticipate Lori bringing chunks at a time for us to evaluate, or the whole thing? When she's finished writing certain sections?
I think we'll do it a little bit of both.
Okay.
That on the kind of core issue of form of government, for example, after we kind of re-put all of that together, we may bring that as a piece. But as much as we can, we want to bring you a package, and then if there are holes that we're noticing along the way, we'll bring those earlier. So a little bit of both.
Okay, so what that's gonna mean to this team is once we start running out of stuff to talk about, we're probably gonna suspend or cancel the meetings until they're ready. Because there are very few things that we need to take action on at this juncture. We will have to be sure that we take our time and read through what they send us. And most of it's gonna mirror what we've already voted on, so. Anyway, does that sound?
That's fine.
All right. How about anybody else? Any other questions? All right. I will see you guys Monday by Zoom.
Perfect.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
I was at the hearing with my deputy.
So we'll check.
Actually, I was.